Alrighty, folks, this is the final module of this MOOC, and it is time to talk about image generation. Personally, I used these tools a lot, especially in the earlier days when they were first being released. I thought they were interesting. We didn't really know about the training data yet and how so much of it was stolen, especially for tools like Midjourney. But over the years, as I've continued to use them and play around with them less and less, I've come to sort of abandon them. I just don't find any real concrete use for them. They end up oftentimes being more trouble than they're worth. And I just kind of I enjoy doing the visual parts of creating graphics and illustrations and doing graphic design. And I have no desire to hand that off to a bot to create some generic, turnkey style image that is instantly recognizable and reviled by the general public. And we'll see why in a second. I'm going to show you how to use these tools and a couple of different tools that are out there. But ultimately, I think my takeaway, and I hope your takeaway from this lesson, is that this is one of those things that if you had to get rid of one of the AI features or tools, the image generation would be the first thing on the chopping block, in my opinion. They're fine if you want, or you really need some kind of specialized stock illustration or icon. They're fine if you are struggling to create or to design or come up with a specific element or piece of a larger puzzle or mosaic of an art or an image piece that you're working on. But overall, in the end, I think when you see what these tools can and can't do, and you see some of the ways that they fall short, you'll come to the same conclusion that the text generation stuff is enough. I don't need to add image generation to this. I don't need to take the last fun thing, art, and give it off to a bot. So maybe you come to a different conclusion, maybe not. I will say up the top, we are going to focus on maybe one or two examples of image generation. I'm not going to show you how to use it to generate lifelike photos or to generate fake product placements or any of that stuff. You can look that up from somebody else. I don't like that. I don't think that's ethical. I don't think it's fun, and I don't think it's honest with the communities and the audiences that we serve. So I'm going to show you some admittedly very boring use cases for it, and you take that and do with it what you will. Okay, so everybody knows, or at least most people know, about DALL-E, which I don't think it's called DALL-E anymore, but this is top of the line right now, and they have seemingly fixed the weird alien-looking text issues when it comes to generating details in images. Overall, they seem to have made a huge jump within the last 2 weeks in these models. So let's take a second and let's just have it generate an image. And let's just say we want to try something. Maybe we want to make an infographic, and this is just to show you the difference between previous models and this model. So let's say make an infographic that explains why traffic is so bad in New Jersey. Include at least 4 examples and include sources. So it seems it misunderstood me at first and instead searched the web and gave me 4 images from the web. That's not what I wanted. So right off the bat, not very reliable. Okay, and you can see here, it has created an infographic, and I guess it's given me a download link, but that didn't work. Genuinely, this is impressive compared to the previous iterations of this model. And I'll show you what this same prompt looks like in a couple of different models. So let's take this same prompt and let's come over to Midjourney and let's say an infographic. We're going to use the same type of prompt. And we're going to add some indicators here. There's a bunch of things you can add. We're going to say we want some little bit of stylization. We want a portrait style. We want it to be raw. No, we don't want it to be raw. We're going to use the latest model. We're not going to personalize it. We'll keep it here. And let's just send this. Now, in contrast to what ChatGPT did, ChatGPT gave us 1 image. Technically, these are not ChatGPT's images. These are photos, actually. Here we go. Midjourney gives us 4. And while these are visually maybe a little bit interesting or aesthetically interesting, we can already see, if we look at this, we see these weird anomalies, we see cars stacked on top of each other, and just in general, this is not an infographic. This might work as maybe a background for, maybe you can blur this out or whatever the hell this is. For an infographic that you make, maybe you do this one. Okay, maybe it looks like this. We have some cars going the wrong way on the highway. We have a solid yellow line here. There's just so much wrong with this, and all of the little details are completely weird. The closer you look, the weirder it gets. Same thing with this one. I don't understand what's going on here. We've got cars all going different directions on the street. We've got random weird poles jutting out. It's just a mess. And again, just to reiterate, it's not an infographic. Now let's come over to Google in the AI studio here for Google and Gemini and try their latest iteration called 2.0 Flash Image Generation Experimental. They really, really are not beating the terrible naming convention allegations. So again, here we go. Make an infographic. It explains why traffic is so bad in New Jersey. Include at least 4 examples and include sources for the data points. So let's run this and let's see what it's able to do. So that was very quick. And it is trash. It looks awful. You can't use this. It's got like 5 different versions of shapes of New Jersey. It's garbage. I can maybe follow up and say, fix the text. And it's trying again, and it did not fix the text. It's garbage. Let's try Ideogram.ai, which is another one that is reasonable in terms of some of the quality we get. Let's see what this is able to do. Ideogram seems to have done slightly better, but why traffic is so bad in New Jersey? And then we got very, very strange, weird, nonsensical text or text-like images. And we can look at the other ones. Trash. YTS Bob in New Jersey, over 1 million vehicles, more traffic during hours, traffic immense, sane daily. I've seen people post things like this. I've seen organizations or newsrooms post things like this as if it's not terrible. And even if you did want to use one of these as the baseline for, or the sort of template or structure for what you wanted to do, let's say you wanted to take the time and swap these all out, you still have to edit it. It cannot, the only one that actually is reasonable, that actually seems to have spelled all the words correctly and actually makes a little bit of sense, even though this is not actually a source. We don't actually know what TRIP is, or, I mean, obviously the US Census Bureau is a thing. All these facts it just made up. So let's try something a little bit different. We can pretty much rule these out. So Midjourney sucked, Image Gen by Google sucked, Ideogram sucked, and this playground.com sucked. What else? We got Canva. I'm not even going to try Canva because I know that Canva is terrible at this kind of thing. Maybe Adobe Firefly can do this. And I didn't change it from portrait or from square to portrait, but we'll see. Okay, once again, nonsense. Absolute nonsense. It has the approximation. If you blurred your eyes or if you looked at it from 40 feet away, maybe you might think this is an infographic. But the minute you take even a bit of a closer look, it's going to look like crap. But instead of just starting here with asking for it to do sources, let's come back. Let's do a new chat. And let's come back here to create image. And let's say use the information below to create an infographic that explains the housing crisis in New Jersey. But instead of just sending a prompt without any additional context, we already learned that these tools do a little bit better if you give them something to work with. So why don't we go over to 11 Labs and grab the transcript from our housing crisis and affordable housing press briefing from the other week that we've used in previous models. And let's take the text version. Let's download it. And now I'm going to take that transcript and I'm going to upload it alongside of this prompt to generate an image, and we'll see if it gets any better. Okay, so here we go. We've got housing crisis in New Jersey, median home sale price, $543,000, nearly double the national average. More than 1 million renter households are cost burdened. 32% of households pay more than 50% of their income on rent, and there's a shortage of 225,000 affordable rental homes. All of the text is great. It looks fine, and I can absolutely see this being embedded alongside an article. but we still have to go ahead and verify these things. So instead of just giving it the entire transcript, why don't we dial it down a little bit? Let's skim this down and ask Claude to extract the main data points and statistics mentioned in this transcript from a press briefing about the New Jersey housing crisis. So we're going to trim that context down so it doesn't have to search through the entire transcript and then try to figure out what it wants to do. So let's take this. This is much more specific. It's rooted in the transcript that we gave it, and presumably you are familiar with that information. So let's start with the housing affordability statistics, and we'll just start a new chat. Turn on our create image, create an infographic based on the statistics and facts below regarding the New Jersey housing crisis 2025. So once again, we will wait to see what it comes up with. While that's going, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over here, and I actually wanted to add the titles. Let's go ahead and add that. Okay, so now we have the little bit more robust. I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to use the housing and affordability statistics here with the attributions, and let's come back and see how this one did. This seems to be much better. It's got a lot more text. So instead, let me say here, let me now create or generate another infographic in a completely different style using the following attributed information. And again, we've given it like 14 data points or 14 stats here. We can trim these down and we can make sure that we focus on ones that would have the most impact. All of this is done by, or should be done by, someone who has a general or at least an overall understanding of the value and the craft of infographics. But again, going back and forth with this, you could easily just whip open Canva and do something like this. This is literally just a bunch of icons with text next to them. Same thing with this one, with the previous ones that we've done. It's not a chart or a graph. There's nothing mathematical or scientific. This is simply an image that it represents the text. And really, in that case, it's just a bunch of text with some icons. The key thing to remember when you're working, at least with the ChatGPT version of this, Midjourney is different, and every one of them is slightly different. But the thing you can remember about working with the ChatGPT or DALL-E version is that ultimately you can sort of work with it and talk to it back and forth in a very similar way that you would talk to the text version or the text-only version. And I'll show you in a minute when this is done generating an additional way to edit or interact with the images it generates if you'd like to create or do spot edits without bringing it into an actual external editing or photo or image editing tool. So it's the borders are all weird. So let's open this up, and you'll notice at the top here, we've got this little select button. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight a section, and I'm just going to highlight all of this at the bottom. And I'm going to say, instead of representing this part with text, I want it to be graphics and visuals and icons and charts and graphs and that kind of stuff. So we'll see how that does. And you can see it's sort of replying to a selection. And now it's not going to touch the top half of this, or it shouldn't touch the top half of this. And hopefully it will reimagine and regenerate something for the bottom half. But again, I just keep saying this and I feel like I'm a broken record, but this is a weird and honestly a dumb way to interact with image generation, or at least infographic generation. And I don't see any real use case where you would need to generate a fictional or a fake image of an actual thing that happened. So unless you're using this for some abstract representation or generation, or you're using it to quickly mock up maybe what the style of infographic that you'd want to create, it's just really not that useful for news and journalism related efforts. Okay, that took forever, and it's probably the worst one yet. So again, it seems like every single quote here, except for this last one, is attributed to Dana DeFilippo. Nowlessness has increased 24% in the past since 2021. Just a nonsense thing. I guess it was supposed to mean homelessness. New Jersey has 12 evictions for every 100 rental households. Again, a lot of text, and it just crammed a bunch of nonsense in here. So one last approach and one last tool that I've sort of saved here. This one actually works. It's strange, but it actually works. It's called Napkin.AI. It seems to be free right now. It's in beta. So each one of these documents is called a napkin, and I'm going to paste the information that we have here. And you'll notice that when I hover over something like this, I get this little lightning bolt on the left side. And what this does is I'm going to highlight just this first section, and I'm going to click Generate Visuals. And again, just as impressive as the ChatGPT image generation thing was, this I think is much better and much more actually useful because it seems to actually get the data correct and is able to extract it and then fit it into a series of pre-formatted data visualization templates. This is really useful. This is what an infographic looks like. I don't know why this one is a fish, but I kind of dig it. And what this allows you to do here, look at that. There's a couple of pie charts or, ring donut charts here. This one here, this Napkin.ai tool seems to work best. And once you find the one that you like, maybe we do this one. This kind of looks like buildings. You click it, and then you can choose from a variety of styles. And let's see, I kind of like this one. But the real kicker here is that each one of these items, these elements, is editable. So if, for instance, it does not get one of these stats or some of the information right, you can go in, or even if you're petty and you don't like title case and you just want to come in here and edit them. All of this is editable, and it seems to be at least somewhat vector-based. So the sizing and the rasterization is not a huge issue. This is valuable. This is super useful. And again, because you can edit it and tweak it and move stuff around and change things, it opens up the possibilities of what you can do with this. So you can see here, I can change the color. I can do anything I want here, and I can make sure each one of these things is correct. So we want this to be blue or green, just like this. Same thing here. We want this to be green, fully customizable. And then you can export it, and you can change the aspect ratio. You can change the style, and you can export it as either a PNG, an SVG, or a PDF. You can take the napkin logo off. This is a new thing they just added. I guess they're introducing their paid tiers. You can choose from light mode or dark mode. You can turn the background on or off, and you can choose the resolution, which you can see changes at the bottom here. And then you just download it, and you have yourself an infographic. And it says here, made with napkin. And this is actually pretty cool. It's pretty useful. It's a nice visual accompaniment for the verified and accurate reporting that you've done, right? Either way, the bottom line here, folks, is when you are using these tools to generate little snippets, little images, little graphics, infographics, or entire dashboards, it does not stop when it's done generating. You're supposed to remove them from the tool and then apply your own human labor and insight and input into these things. I'm not going to do too much more on this. I think that pretty much caps it for image and data visualization. I just don't think you should be using these tools to generate images. That being said, if you are dead set on using these to generate images, or you have ideas of how you might find them useful to you, I did put together a few years back a guide on how to use these tools and my approach to using them. I've got an example here of an image that it gave me with, again, we see these terrible nonsensical words here that at least a few of them have actual words. And what I've done is I've taken that as a starting point and I brought it into Photoshop. I even missed a few here and here, but I've started hacking away at these and adding actual text and editing the photo. So if you want to spend time doing something like this, that's fine, but I wouldn't recommend it, not to mention the energy and processing costs and the concerns about intellectual and artistic property theft. But if you're going to, I have put together a little database here, or a gallery of different art styles. Let me move myself back over here. Not artists, but art styles. And each one of these little elements here has a description of the art style, a DALL-E 3 prompt, and some keywords that you might add to your prompt to indicate what that you want it to look like. And I've got 77 different styles here. Several of them are overlapping, but I feel like if you want to use these things, I have put together a little bit of a beginner's guide for you, and I will put the link to access this guide and the database or repository of art styles on the screen now. So you can go to the link on the screen now and you can read the Medium post about it. That includes everything from links to the art style gallery to the list of tips and tricks on how to get the most out of these tools if you really insist or are insistent on using them to generate images, which I don't recommend. It's tired, it's not cool, it's boring, and you will get sick of it pretty quickly, trust me. Stick to Canva, stick to Photoshop. I will say though, Napkin.AI and some of the Claude artifacts that it's able to generate as far as infographics and visualizations go are not half bad, and with a little bit of human polish there, can actually be somewhat decent. So that's it. That is the end of Module 4 on our ethics and image and data visualization. I hope you got a lot out of this course. I certainly did. I had a lot of fun recording and teaching it and thinking through these problems and going through all the stuff. Why do I think this? What do I do? How do I do this? It's been several years that I've been working on this stuff, and it does help to sort of go back to basics and try to articulate the different things that are going on right now and the approaches to them. So I really hope that you got something out of this. I did. And I want you to take a few minutes before you wrap up this course and just think back to all the things that we discussed over the last several modules and think about the implications of them. Think about how these tools may or may not be valuable to you and your newsroom and your news gathering efforts. And at the end, I just want to reiterate here, it is okay to learn about this stuff, to engross yourself and embed yourself in it, to really soak it in for a while, and then decide at the end, maybe this isn't for me, or this particular element of it isn't for me. That's totally fine and totally acceptable, as long as you've taken the time to educate yourself about this, which you clearly have, so that you aren't going to be fooled or left behind as the technology continues to develop and evolve. I think you're going to be in good shape. And I appreciate it. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I will see you in the Instructor forums. Good luck.